Hey, good morning, LinkedIn and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. It is crazy times right now with coronavirus. I hope everyone's out there is safe and enjoying the self isolation period that we're in right now. If you guys are just tuning in on YouTube or LinkedIn, let me know in the comments. We want to keep this a very highly interactive conversation. I'm gonna turn on the uh, bridge right now. So the conference line is open. You can dial in to the show any point in time today. Share your perspective. We want to hear your stories, your perspective. What are you guys doing right now in isolation? How are you guys optimizing your work from home? You know, I assembled a panel of experts here, but uh, as a panel of experts as we are, everyone's perspective here is vitally important, and we want to hear from you guys what you guys are doing out there to work from home, what you guys are struggling with as well. So the number right here is at the bottom of the screen, 214-856-2389. I'm going to introduce my guest in just a little bit. But before I do, just want to kind of set the agenda for today. So I have a panel of guests, Cristantos, Kevin Thompson, and Chris Bauserman. Can never pronounce your last name, Cristantos. But these gentlemen are from are industry leaders in my world of channel partners. Nice InContact, Zoom Communications, and Prodoscore. So each one of these individuals is doing their part right now to help just make sure that companies and workers and individuals are able to continue to be productive no matter where they are working from. So let me bring them in kind of one by one here. Bear with me one second. There we go. Cool. Gentlemen, I'm unmuting you guys right now. Good morning. You guys are live on the air on Dialed In. How's everybody feeling this morning?
Kyle.
Start with you, Chris.
Good morning.
Cristantos, how are you feeling this morning? Like, what's your pulse check on?
I was sharing before we just started. Just as you said, I'm thinking about all the change that's coming in. The world that we're all waking up to that is not going to be the same when all this is said and done. And not for worse. There's going to be a lot of good things that come out of this, but it's just we're just going to live in such a different world. It's going to be complete disruption, acceleration of technology like you've never seen it before. So, I think this is going to be a great discussion to see what everybody thinks.
Absolutely. How about you, Chris Bauserman? How are you doing today, sir? Like, what's on your mind this morning?
Yeah, I think it's just sort of really trying to accept the sort of new normal for this foreseeable future. I think we're all sort of settling into kids from home, everyone from home. This sort of social distancing is probably going to last at least 2 or 3 months, and so I think that's not fully sunk in yet, but just sort of thinking about this is not just a 2-week spike of things, but how do we adjust for quite a while like this?
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. And last but not least, Kevin Thompson, how are you feeling today, man? What's on your mind?
I'd like to just say thanks for having us on. The topic of remote workforce is now critical than ever before. There's so much uncertainty in the marketplace right now. You're seeing just how the Dow is reacting this morning, potential unemployment, healthcare workers being, strung out essentially for days on end trying to help folks. So hoping this discussion can help those who are out there are in need of solutions to get back online, start helping or trying to drive any business that they can. So really happy that you set up this forum to really bring happiness and help to folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're kind of all kind of struggling through all these hard times together. So at least there's that. So Cristantos, you represent a company called Prodoscore, and I had you on the show last year, and part of what your company does, I know you can probably talk to this, but it is somewhat polarizing and controversial to some workers, because they feel like you might be like a big brother, but then to the employers themselves, you're actually enabling workforce productivity by being able to give employees a productivity score, hence the name Prodoscore, right? So with that hat on, right, avoiding the sales side of it, but with that hat on, like what is Prodoscore's plans, or what have you guys been thinking about how you are able to help out in this situation?
So, I mean, that's a good question. So, again, it's a different mindset, and you have to remember, as companies move to remote working, like we're just moving into a rush with no plan. Like there's no real plan to allow people to work from home, and we're just saying everybody go work from home. No real plan. There were reports yesterday. Some of the biggest tech companies, the biggest tech companies, biggest names, they're not even enabled to work remote. Like they don't have the tools. They can't even log into the systems that they need to use on an everyday, work experience from home. Like they can't work. And these are some of the biggest tech names in the world. They can't even work remotely. We are not prepared to work remotely. And I think a lot of people are going to, and it's not just video, it's not just communicate. I mean, it's security, it's accessing files, it's, the software on the local machines, because you can only use the machines in the office. I mean, there's all kinds of issues, right? And that's a whole different bucket of problems. Then you got the issue of, okay, I'm sending everybody home. And what's the biggest issue with trusting everybody to work from home is having visibility. There's this consciousness, it's a psychological consciousness of, how do I know what people are doing all day? How do I know they're just not sitting there messing around doing, like, you need activity. And if you think about, if any of you guys are a fan of economics, I call myself an armchair economics guy. You have to have productivity, for an economy to thrive, an economy to work. And it's the same thing with the business. You got to have productivity. And imagine if we didn't have a GDP. Imagine if we didn't issue a GDP number, or we weren't taking unemployment rates, or we were just flying in the dark, running the largest economy in the world, flying in the dark. Wall Street wouldn't know how to price things in. Nothing would take place. So how do you manage a remote workforce? How do you get visibility into their productivity, to their activity? What do? You go log into all these different systems, aggregate it all, put it on a spreadsheet, and then try to make sense of it. So, and I've been in this remote work business for probably 10 years. Like, I am the biggest fan. Like, I see personally, and I hate to say this, I see no disruption to my life, because this is how I've been working for forever. Like, I'm busier than ever right now. And it's not like I'm scrambling to get everything in place, because it's always been in place.
Right.
Well said.
Yeah, well said, definitely. What do you think? I know you said that, obviously we all have to be productive and continue being productive, but what do you think is a reasonable amount of time? Because understandably, like, people aren't productive right now, right? I mean, like, big obvious observation. But what's a reasonable amount of time before we get back to being productive? And maybe I'll give this to somebody else, Chris Bauserman. So, Chris Bauserman, you are one of the lead engineers over there, and in charge of product over at InContact, right? So you have that perspective of customer call centers, contact centers.
Right. So so I think the internally, right. So if we look at internally in our company, we made the move. We have a lot of people who work remotely already, but the majority of our employees do work out of offices. And so we made the decision quickly last week to move everyone remote. And I think a little bit, as Cristantos was saying, we're fortunate in our technology allowed us to do that fairly quickly. A lot of organizations don't have that. But once you get the technology, you say, everyone bring your laptops home and don't come back. Then the hard part starts. So, from a technical perspective, we're doing a number of things to help organizations move quickly. So our customers are already using us to run their call centers. Got a number of customers who've been able to move very, very quickly within a matter of a couple hours, move their whole teams home and remote. But what we're also doing is is to really help we've got a new offer that we're helping any organization, no contract, just move their call center to work from home within 48 hours. So, and that's the technology part of it. And then once you get that going, there's a number of things we can talk about here throughout best practices to make sure that once you get them home and get them connected, they're productive. But we're definitely focused right now on getting that connectivity and that remote work enabled. And then it becomes the hard part of keeping them focused.
Right. Absolutely. So what are some of the things that you guys are doing over there at Zoom, Kevin, with regards to, obviously your platform is probably arguably one of the most in-demand platforms out there. I saw that it was #1 in the App Store. It just makes sense, right? So what's going on over there at Zoom?
Yeah, a lot. Even carving this hour out is a lot. So right now I believe we're housing more than 50% of the global traffic on our network, stimulating the economy. There was a tweet out yesterday that said that we should have the National Guard protecting Zoom because you have the majority of the global economy on our network. Our CEO just got off of CNN about 20 minutes ago, and there was a highlight on what we are doing from K through 12. We issued all free licensing for school children, and we did that in January for all of China. So, the core values of what we're trying to accomplish, being, #2 on Glassdoor and just really having unbelievable culture is happiness first, customer happiness, care. You care about your community, care about your people, care about your customers, and the rest will follow. And we're in a very fortunate position that the network was architected from the ground up with 1 billion office workers as our target to bring over to Zoom video. So having the ability to auto scale has allowed us to keep up with the demands. You did mention #1 in the App Store. We're helping customers. Again, I think everyone's doing their part to help stimulate this remote workforce. A lot of companies have taken down contracts, or a lot of them are helping procure free licensing, and it's really fun to see the business community bond together to just help people regardless of views. So we're excited to help. A lot in demand. It is shiny, but thankfully we have the capacity to do so, and we're just we're praying every single day that we can maintain this continuity as people are leaning on us like never before.
No, absolutely. It's amazing to see what you guys are doing in such strenuous times. So some tips for actually optimizing work from home. So from the employee perspective, from the individual perspective, right? So as all of us who work from home, not like we're finding out, not every company is ready for this. Even though those of us who work from home, we might think like, oh, it's easy to work from home, right? But so what are some tips or some things that you've picked up along the way working from home that maybe like an obvious one, but then maybe a not so obvious one, starting with you, Cristantos?
So I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize is I think there's this insecurity part where because you work from home, especially if you work for a big company or a company that has a certain type of culture, you feel guilty, right? I think that's there's this guilt part. Like if you're one of the few that gets to work from home, you feel like you have to overwork and overcompensate because you work from home, and that you have to do more. Like the productivity, because you just want to know, you have this thing in your head where people think you don't work because you work from home, and you have to work harder. And the reality is you're actually working more than you're working in the office, because if you've ever gone to an office and you work from home, when I go to an office, I socialize. I don't work. I go and I visit every single cubicle on mankind and go talk about nonsense with people. and the disruptions that happen in the office are off the chart. So I would give yourself some slack. Don't feel bad to watch TV. Don't feel bad to take a break, go take a nap. Like, it's completely the opposite of what everybody's thinking. Like, don't feel bad for doing those things. Don't feel bad for just, taking a break. Like, take a break. I mean, because remote workers work throughout the day. It's not just a 9 to 5. They work in the morning, they work in the afternoon, they work in the evening. So I would say don't beat yourself up, trying to prove that you're working.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what about you, Chris Bauserman? What's your perspective?
So I'll talk about it from the call center perspective, and so there's a few things with that. I mean, one is that call centers are sort of you think of the typical traditional one is the epitome of butts in seats, high monitoring, supervisors walking around, everyone in one location, physical equipment routing the calls, needing to be there. And so I think that three big things to think about are, one is, like I said, we've for those, and there's actually friends and family I know that work in call centers I've reached out to say, hey, who are still going into work and feeling nervous, we've got we've got something that can get you, move all your agents home in 48 hours, no charge. So we're doing that for all contact centers, all sizes, all industries right now. So that's kind of one, just to make sure we get those agents home and safe and get them in a remote quarantine scenario. But once they're there, the good thing is all the things in terms of feeding them the calls, feeding them the interactions, routing it to it, the kind of task-based work is all kind of built in, right? So I think one of the things with the knowledge worker, office worker who's not in a structured environment like a call center, I think Cristantos is talking about is, a little bit is that how do you know you're productive? How do you know what your to-do list is today? But the call center, if you can get them working remotely, that part's the easy part, right? They're they're available, they're on a shift, you route customers to them. So that's in some sense, right? Getting them home and getting them there is takes away one of the big challenges that general office workers have. Another consideration too is it's not just taking a particular office and moving them all from home, because you've also got to deal with certain locales have more disruption, right? If you're in Seattle, if you're in New York, you're in San Francisco, some of those areas have a much more stringent shelter-in-place order, more disruptive to the families. You might want to say all these calls that we're going to those locations, move them to Omaha, move them to Ireland, move them to the Philippines, you've got other sites. And we're also able to move those around, so shift the work geographically entirely. Could be for a period of time, right, to give those teams the ability to kind of get themselves settled, but not disrupt your business, not disrupt the ability to take care of your end customers. Another thought on that too is you can also load balance, right? You've got big spikes, right? A lot of businesses have seen volumes go down, but some have seen it go way up. Zoom being one of them, but many others too that are really getting a lot of calls. Even airlines, right, who are seeing their actual revenue and services go down, doesn't mean they're not dealing with a huge amount of customer support that they need. So you also can move that around and balance that across locations is really important too, and not just think of the sort of your traditional, this team does this, right, everybody can pitch in. But then the third thing I think is really important to think about, and it's kind of replacing what Cristantos talked about with that water cooler conversation, is really need to over communicate. So if you've got teams that are used to sitting in the office, having their supervisor just kind of walk up behind them, give them a tip, talk to their neighbor how things are doing, you've got to be able to replicate that in a remote work environment. So you've got to be able to, whether it be standing up, impromptu Zoom meetings, having lots of emails, lots of IMs, SMS to your teams. And when you do get an internal meeting, right, it's okay to take 5 or 10 minutes to ask how people are doing, have them tell their stories about, what their kids are doing that kind of are causing them grief trying to work from home. I think bring those water cooler conversations in, because this is the time when you really do need to have that sort of human connection, even though everyone's separated out at home and sort of thinking about how they can be productive.
No, right, yeah, that's huge. A couple of takeaways I got from you is, like, especially if you have call centers, that geographic rerouting of, if you have a team in the West Coast and one on the East Coast, even, right, just rerouting those calls is huge. And what about you, Kevin? So, tip for working from home in your experience, the obvious and the not so obvious.
Yeah, one, get up and dress like you are going to the office, even though you're working from home, right? It's,
I hate that one, Kevin. That's
it's a psychology. The cool thing is what Zoom's introduced, which helps for anyone that maybe isn't the happiest with how their office looks. We do virtual backgrounds, so it's just you, and then there's like basically a green screen, so you could be on a beach or the moon or a city. So that's really helping folks transition to their homes without having to show their home. And there's features like, you can raise your hand, again, with a lot of the education using this, using the platform. It's helping, right? But at the end of the day, all phenomenal points by the folks on this call today. Cristantos is dead on. You actually end up working more because you're working more hours. Leveraging the tools that allow you to stay nimble is obviously the foundation to a happy experience at home. And I'd say my big recommendations are: get up, get ready for the day, get dressed up, even though Cristantos doesn't like that. It is a psychology. And then from there, make sure that the tools that you are betting allow for a really good foundation for you to enjoy a pleasant home experience that's frictionless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I wanna go back to the fact that most people out there probably they're not thinking about how to optimize work from home yet. I mean, we're only on basically like day 3 of potentially everyone's taking this serious now. I feel like I don't know about your cities, but in my city, I feel like we're like on day 3. Like, okay, maybe this is a serious thing, and people are starting to pay attention now. So, at what point do you think that that this becomes more relevant for companies? Are companies already making moves now? I think they are, but at what point can we try to like get back to like, here's the plan, and now we have to plan this to go forward? You think we lose this week and we start next week, or what do you guys think? And this is open to anybody.
I think right now what is going to happen, and as unfortunate as it is, but there is a silver lining in all of this. Okay, we are all scrambling to just get everybody situated, and find a way how we're going to ensure that working is happening. Right. The next phase, what's going to happen, and this is the one that's going to be the most difficult one, is they're going to come to the realization there's just not enough work out there right now, and we're gonna have to start just making cuts. Like, I mean, you're gonna see like cuts like you've never seen before. People are gonna get laid off no matter what. There's just not enough activity out there to justify work, right? For companies, doesn't matter what business you're in, you are gonna see cuts across the board because the revenues cannot sustain these types of labor costs. And then once they get that done, then they're gonna start figuring out, okay, how do we optimize for the work that we do have? And then you're going to start saying, okay, how do we fix this? I mean, some companies are trying to go fast and implement change and buy Zoom and buy phones or whatever. They're like ahead of the curve. But for the most part, I think the phase we're in right now is coming to the realization of where we're at, and then looking across the board and saying, okay, where do we cut these costs? Unfortunate as it is, that's the next phase we're going to see. We are going to see a lot of people, unfortunately, let go. But again, there's an upside potential, and we're going to see some good, because we're going to realize how productive these remote workers are, because they're going to be able to compensate for all these workers that were lost. Watch how much productivity they're going to get out of these remote workers, and how much money companies are going to save, because they're going to have to. And I'll never forget, Kevin told me a long time ago. He told me this. He said this to me a long time ago in his previous job. He goes, Chris, this is before this whole thing happened. He goes, you can get rid of the office space. Just let everybody work from home, cut all these costs, and just put Prodoscore. He's like, you don't need office space anymore. So if there's one industry I would not want to be in right now, it would be commercial real estate. Because at the end of all this, after said and done, we are going to realize we can work from home. We don't need the office space. We can do more with less. And it's going to change the way we work. Technology is going to accelerate like we've never seen before. Things that companies didn't want to buy, things that companies didn't want to do. And Kyle, I envision there's going to be SD-WAN for the home, for the people who works remotely, right? Come optimize my own like little mini SD-WAN type service, right? So we're going to figure out ways to optimize the home experience. We're going to do less with more. I think unemployment is going to be here to stay for a little while. I don't think it's going anywhere because we're going to realize we can do more with less. So I think we're in a very deflationary period. And, it's unfortunate, but, if you want to improve productivity from a business standpoint, we are going to see what's possible that's never been done before.
Well said, Cristantos. I mean, you're dead on the majority of that. On the other side of course, after this does be done, the commercial real estate for like fulfillment in the Amazon. I mean, obviously that's a good space to be in.
Oh, that's a warehouse. Yeah, buy
warehouses.
Yeah,
not downtown office space, because you're. If you just saw this morning, SoftBank just backed out of the WeWork bankruptcy. So it is a major deal. And you're right. A lot of folks did use, because we were up in an extreme bull market, they did use cheap money. So a lot of levered up on credit, and then using the capital that they did have to invest in headcount. With a dip like this, the first thing that companies do is cut heads. So we want to, of course, getting back to the technology portion of this and what people are going to be calling in. How do you enable technologies to maximize your employees, to ensure that not only the longevity, but yet they are having better performance, better experience, and doing more with less? And I think that this is definitely the evolution of the distributed workforce.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and I would say, that I've got. There's no doubt.
Hang on, Chris. Sorry, we just got a caller calling in. Who just dialed in?
Hey, it's Seth. How's it going, guys?
Seth, is this Seth Thompson?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, man?
Up, baby?
Where's your LinkedIn intro?
I can't do a head bob through the phone.
Oh, that's true. So Seth, hey, thanks for calling in, man. What's going on? How are you doing out there? You're in Iowa, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're due north of you. We're hanging in there, man. I think we're probably a couple days behind the coast as far as everybody freaking out and some of the effects. But we're definitely feeling it, just like everybody else. So we're kind of holed up at home here, and we're hunkered down for a little bit. How about you guys?
Yeah, doing well. Everyone's doing well here. So Seth, you're an avid work from home type of guy. You're also in the same industry as us, sort of.
Yeah.
You're in the mix, in the fold. So what do you suggest people do to optimize working from home?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting because you obviously have. I think this is the first time in history where we've had something happen like this, number one, and then we actually have the technology and the means to mass mobilize our workforce to work from home. So that's really, really cool. And I'm interested to see how that goes. I think to your point, there are a lot of folks that this is going to be their first experience doing that and not having the structure of the office. And, forgive me if I'm repeating some of the stuff that's probably already been said on here. I've been listening to some of it as I'm hammering out some work, but one of the things I would say is really, really important is to do what works for you. I've heard a couple things as far as, hey, you guys like to go into the office. Others saying, no, I don't like doing that, or have a lot of structure, work 8 to 5, or no, just work whenever you want, come in and out. And I think that's really up to the individual. I mean, I'll say what works for me. I kind of try to pull a little bit from both there. I mean, I like to provide my own structure and prioritize what I'm going to do during the day, but at the same time, I don't, hold myself accountable to some very strict timeline or schedule or anything like that. I mean, I might plug in at 7 and, hammer out some work and then take a long lunch and go to the gym or do whatever I need. and then come back in, do some more work, go pick up the kid. He goes down, I'll do some more. It's kind of just up in the air, but what I will say is find what works for you. I mean, the big thing that I've found, even working for an organization that does have some remote employees, is just deliver results, right? You don't have people hovering over your shoulder, maybe you don't have people listen to all your calls and things like that. But I think it's an opportunity more than anything. If you're one of the individuals that has been spending a lot of time working on the office, that wants that opportunity to work from home, to prove your effectiveness, right? And to prove that, hey, listen, you can pay for me to have space at this office or be there like everybody else, or you can pay for me to be 10% or 20% or, whatever amount more productive, working from home and driving the same outcome. So, I mean, that would be the big thing for me, is find what works for you and, deliver the results that you need to deliver. I know that's tough right now because there's a lot happening, but
yeah,
that's the biggest thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, I read a post from a CISO the other day on LinkedIn, and he was basically addressing his complete distaste and disgust for essentially everybody that we know in our industry, who is everybody's company messaging, as it probably should be, is centered around COVID-19 or coronavirus, but using, like, there's a fine line here of like using that message to say, hey, using it for capital gains, right? At the same time, like, how do we walk that line of, like, all of us in the IT space, like, we are the most valuable right now, like, everybody needs us right now. How do we walk that line of, hey, we're here to help, we're not trying to capitalize, but we are here, right? But, like, see what I mean? Like, it's a tricky line to walk of, like, we're here to help, but we're not trying to capitalize on this, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you make a really good point. Actually, this is something I've kind of tossed around in my head. It's even with stuff on, you're posting on LinkedIn or you're calling people. How does your tone change, right? Because this is like you said, you don't want to come across as opportunistic or predatory in this situation, but there are ways you can help. And I think you are seeing a lot of organizations, some of the folks on this call, either giving away trials of their product and platform, or discounting and those types of things to help folks, mobilize to some extent. I think that's really, really great. But I think a lot of that messaging, it has to do with the tone that you take, right? Are you coming from a place of empathy and authenticity, or are you coming from a place, like you said, where you are just trying to capitalize? Because I think people can feel that in how you're messaging, your voice, how you're talking. And if you're just being real with them, the conversations we've had, I know, Kyle, there's something to be said, and the human aspect of what we do. Like, we can tell when people are not necessarily being sincere, but I think if you're bringing that message with a level of sincerity that can really be felt, you're empathizing, it goes a long way. I know my personal approach has really been to acknowledge and to empathize the situation, but also acknowledge the fact that, hey, there's still work to be done. There's mouths to feed. And, the more that we, don't use these technologies we have to continue to be productive, the more that we try to, make this an even bigger deal than it is, we're just going to be shooting ourselves in the foot for when things come to an end. And actually, I know I said something the other day. The folks, like the individuals that are able to execute right now over the next few months, to keep working, to not let themselves get distracted or totally consumed by everything that's happening, and that focus on controlling what they can control and are able to relay that message in a way that is empathetic, that's sincere, that resonates with people, while still accomplishing what they want to. I mean, those people are going to set themselves apart, and they're going to be the ones that, when all this does eventually subside, right? They're going to be the ones that are standing out. They're going to be the leaders of the future. They're going to be the ones that people look to then, because right now, and I know I don't mean to be on a soapbox, but right now, people are looking for leadership, right? They're looking for a voice to call them, to lead them, to show them the way. And the people that are doing that right now are going to establish themselves as leaders for a long time to come. I mean, it is going back to your point earlier, it's not necessarily about being opportunistic, but it's about helping level people and helping people not get so caught up in hysteria, accepting the situation for what it is, and still going out and doing as much as they can to, hopefully help us come out, as clean as possible on the back end.
Very, very beautifully said, Seth. I appreciate all that, man. Anything else for us?
No, I mean, I appreciate folks like all you hopping on here and sharing your thoughts. Like I just mentioned, I mean, people have so many questions, and none of us have all the answers. But I think just sharing what we do know, what we do have, and our thoughts, that's going to go a long way, and maybe help some other folks out there, even if it is just one or two individuals.
Oh, absolutely, man. I definitely appreciate you, dude.
Hey, Seth, nice seeing you, man. Always follow your posts. You have a good post, man. Love following you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. I will say, hey, now's the time to get active, get a little crazy on LinkedIn, because everybody's probably just sitting at home scrolling. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Seth.
Cool. All right, see you guys.
See you. So Chris Bauserman, sorry we cut you off there. I don't know if you remember where we were there, but
yes.
If you do, pick it back up.
Yeah. Well, it's great. It plays off of what Seth was saying too. Is I think about the whole what's the message that you market and that you have with organizations out there as a provider of technology that can help them. And what's that mean for this week, next week, in the future? And I think one of the things that I really agree with Seth on is there's that very fine line, and we've been very conscious to walk that line between talking about the situation with coronavirus, COVID-19, and using those words, but not as a blanket scare tactic, or excuse for hyperbole, right? So it's all about, okay, you're dealing with this. You need to move your agents to work from home. You need to, have business continuity in place. You need to be able to move fast, right? So what are the things that we know you need? The customers are coming to us for help, and let's address those specific pain points. And really importantly, do it with no BS, no hyperbole, no marketing fluff, right? And that's why we chose to actually even talk about the virus and anything, is because we want to be straight talk. We want to talk straight about it, talk about what pain points that we see are out there for businesses as they're scrambling to respond. Make sure we can tell them what we can help with, what we can't help with, and where we can point them for other resources. And I think it's and I think that's the thing for us all to keep in mind, is we're all scrambling. Everyone's running a mile a minute. This is not the time for anything flowery language, not the time for anything that's indirect. Just be really clear to the point, how we can help, what's it going to take. Don't hide things. Don't say you can do things that you can't. And I think that transparency and just genuineness to help, I think, is most important. And I'd say there's one thing I disagree a little bit with Cristantos and Kevin on, is in terms of the medium term. I think there's no doubt certain industries, restaurants, right, travel and hospitality are in a really, really tough spot right now, and will be for months. I do think that there are a lot of other parts of the business, other businesses, if you will, that are going to be doing a surprising amount of business as usual. Again, it's going to be very uneven. It's going to be a bit of a rough transition the next couple of weeks. But I do think this is an opportunity for individuals to shine, right? Businesses and corporate leaders to shine, and for a lot of technology shifts to happen. I think we have talked about that. You can see remote work, work from home, remote collaboration, having virtual offices, whether it be call centers or other teams that you do, that there are a lot of things we can do, things we couldn't have done 2-3 years ago. And I think every big economic shock like this, and this is a shock, as we're seeing, it's almost comparable to a wartime situation, leads to different changes. I mean, so real estate was one that, but I also think this is one of those things too. We start looking at remote collaboration, accelerating the transition off of legacy technology that binds you into the office. I think there's going to be some really big shifts that have already been in place, will accelerate coming out of this. And again, depending on how long we're in this, it will be interesting to see, you know, what things kind of snap back. You know, I do think people are going to want to still be face-to-face, collaborate in the office when it comes back. However, a lot of assumptions that say, hey, you can't do this job remote or you can't do that job remote, I think those arguments go away. But what's really interesting is how long we're in this mode. And I think that's the part that no one knows right now. You know, is it 2 months or is it 2 years?
But Chris, you're gonna have the psychological aspects of this from a virus, it's psychologically psychologically is going to be with people for a long time. I live in Irvine, California. I live amongst the Chinese community, and they had SARS 10 years ago, and before this even happened, they still wear masks, right? So psychologically, they were already conditioned to this type of environment. So to say that what is going to be coming out next and that it's not going to have long-term ramifications it's not just gonna, I mean, everybody in CNBC talk about a V recovery. We are not going to have no V recovery. This is going to be like this, a long drawn out L. It's almost going to look like an L before it goes back and looks like a U. We are in the middle of the most dramatic change that we have ever seen in our lifetime. Probably, I mean, they're going to write stories about this thing. And I am telling you, we are going to realize that we can do more with less. Because remember, at the end of the day, technology is deflationary. Always remember that. Technology is deflationary. It cuts jobs. And what we are doing is we are accelerating technology at an unprecedented level. And what that does with technology, because now we're incorporating all these amazing technologies, it's going to show businesses that they can do more with less. And their mindset is going to change on how they approach business now. And I'll give you one example. DoorDash, Grubhub. You're going to realize you don't need brick and mortar restaurants anymore. Why, if I'm a restaurateur, am I going to pay 30% of my profits to the landlord when I can go get a warehouse space and open a kitchen in there and pay 50 cents a square foot and just do my DoorDash delivery off there? Because now, the past 6 months, everybody's been using DoorDash. So it's going to be completely disruption. I mean, at an unprecedented level.
Wow. Yeah. No, but for real, it will. It will.
I don't know. This stuff.
That was good stuff, Chris. We're gonna go back and cut that out and send that out separately. We have a caller, Seth.
Hey, Kyle.
Seth,
this is Deepak here.
Deepak, sorry, your caller ID always comes up backwards. What's going on, Deepak? How you doing, man?
No, this is wonderful. Hey, this is a great conversation. Some great insights. The point which I wanted to make, I think one of the speakers has been talking about the job losses. But I think like any other disruption, there would be winners and there would be losers. I just saw Amazon has hired 100,000 more workers because a lot of more food stuff and other items need to be distributed. So it's not just the place we are doing work, but the nature of work may change. And so it would not just be about job losses. There would be many sectors where there will be job gains. So there will be a lot of emphasis is needed on retraining, reskilling, and stuff of that kind.
Yeah, and to Chris's point about technology being deflationary, I completely wholeheartedly agree. So we're going to it's going to very quickly accelerate the fact that those of us that are in jobs are quickly going to be moving towards the things that you cannot replace with technology, which is really comes down to communication and collaboration, right? And that's where all this is such a tricky spot, right?
But Vishal, what kind of jobs is Amazon bringing? They're not bringing $50 an hour jobs. They're bringing crap jobs like that can barely survive. Like these are not like mind-boggling jobs. So like 100,000 jobs who pay minimum wage. Those aren't even sustainable jobs when we're going to have an inflationary period when it comes to the price of food costs. Because food costs is going to be the only thing that we are going to see. Healthcare and food costs are going to be inflationary. And that is going to make our money even worth less. So how are people going to afford to pay for these types of things if they're getting minimum wage? I mean, those are the jobs Amazon creates. Let's be honest. They're creating mindless jobs.
So I just picked Amazon as an example. The point was that the nature of the workforce will change. The whole profile of the kind of jobs which are there would change. Even if a company like Amazon is bringing 100,000 low-paying jobs, but it is like any other job. It would be a pyramid. It would be other technology enablers which would be needed to sustain the new models which are emerging. So there would be a shift from the kind of work which is happening now to the kind of work which will evolve in the future. And maybe some of it would be low paying, but some of it could very well be high paying too.
Yeah, and Deepak, I totally agree with you that this is as a big accelerant, and definitely there'll be everything, and I think everything that you talked about was already in process, right? We saw a lot of these shifts already happening in the economy, and this is just going to just pour massive gasoline on that fire. But the economy and people are resilient, right? We will, there's going to be a lot of pain in certain areas. There's going to be a lot of disruption for everyone, but we will be doing, addition as well as subtraction as part of this. Now, not to say that that's going to be easy on everyone, but I think that there are a lot of parts of our economy they'll still continue, right? And I think people still need to do this. And in Cristantos, I'm not advocating this is going to be a V-shaped recovery economically, but I do think that as we transition out of this, there's still a lot of things. I think there's going to be a remarkable amount of things that we're going to be able to do and continue to do in new ways. And so I think that's that's Deepak's point as well, right? Is that it's not just going to be negative. We're going to start transitioning and moving things. Technology will help. Different ways of doing things will help. And we will make that, we will continue a lot of our activities, a lot of our work. And even, we talk to our own customers and our own employees, right? There are a number of people in each company that are really scrambling to figure out how to make all these radical changes in their workforce right now. And there are a number of industries that are having radical changes in terms of their business model. And maybe 60, 70 people who are still just trying to do their job and just do it productively and keep focused. And so I think we gotta keep in mind too that the vast majority of people can and will continue to do the kinds of things they're doing. It's going to be very disruptive and very different how it gets done.
Yep. And one more point before I get off the line, and the point is that the very reason that so many times people beat up technology, people who are not tech savvy, they think that technology is all about taking jobs away. But the very fact that our society is being able to respond to this challenge, which COVID-19 has brought on us, is because the technology enablers for remote work from home, and all this are in place. So I think there's a lot to be said about what power of technology is, and means all of us who work in this sector can claim somewhat of that we have had a role in enabling that and ensuring that the society doesn't collapse when a virus like COVID-19 comes to bear. So technology means even as much as people would like to beat it up, it is the enabler. It is what is ensuring that we as a nation, as a society, as a world are surviving the onslaught of this phenomenon. Thanks, guys. I'll drop off the line.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak.
Thanks, Deepak. And we got another caller as well. Who else just dialed in?
Hey, gentlemen. Todd Scarborough here.
What's going on, Todd?
Chris, doing well.
Hey, Todd.
Kyle, doing well.
What's up,
good. This is a great topic. Really appreciate you guys pulling together and covering the things that we're covering. And Cristantos, this is going to be hard for all of us. I think we all see that very clearly in all of our communities. Calling from Austin, Texas today, or Liberty Hill, Texas, north of Austin. Everybody's kind of settling in place, but we're out here in the country, and so people are still getting outside, just keeping our distance. But the thing that I've been thinking about as I listen to you guys talk is the fact that we as folks in technology have been talking about working from home and business continuity planning and all these things for years, and now we're in the position where it's business continuity execution time. And we're actually moving people down the pathways that we've been taking them down over the years, or it's accelerating conversations. 6,000 to your point, it's accelerating this shift, I think, to work from home that we've all been talking about for years. What is, as we get to the top of the hour here, what are what's power of three? I'm big on threes. So what are the top three benefits that you guys each see that these benefits are going to gain as we move these workers home? Aside from productivity, I think that's a natural gain. I'm sure Cristantos, you're going to talk about that for sure. Not aside from productivity, but what else? What are the other benefits y'all see as folks are shifting and as our industry and as our businesses shift? And I think this has been coming a long time. What do you guys think?
Let's start with KT.
Yeah. So, I mean, on Sunday alone, we had over 600,000 people download our app, right? Which is a record number in a day for the App Store. And you now have concerts, church services, art exhibits, people connecting all over the world using our application. And it's free. It's free to use. So from a humanitarian standpoint, we feel really, really good about where we stand in the marketplace and helping try to bring normalcy to this epidemic. On the business side, it's pretty obvious just from the clients that we do have represented that were using Zoom before this. They haven't seen a blip on the radar from a employee production standpoint. Of course, we went to rabbit hole on economics here, which I'm not qualified to comment on, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I know our technology well enough, and to Todd's point, the benefits of it outside of productivity is, at least from my platform, that we're connecting humans like we never have over the internet, right? All K through 12 is using Zoom. Again, our CEO just got off a CNN where it's working, and we're thankful because our youth is our future, and we must maintain education to move forward. So again, it's a blessing. I really appreciate you having us on, Kyle, for this, and Todd, great question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
How about you, Chris Bauserman?
So I think that, the three things I would say is that, one is, in this time of, where a lot of people are making hard trade-offs, I think we're also seeing that, as individuals, as business leaders, people are making the right choice to sort of, to put employee safety and health first, right? You're seeing a lot of businesses, again, moving employees from home, obviously that, we talk about the technology that can help make that happen. InContact is offering a free solution to help businesses within 2 days do that for their call centers. Others are doing that as well. But, all these businesses that are closing voluntarily, moving their employees from home with potential productivity hits, they're making the choice of people over profits. And I think we're doing that collectively. And I think, it's, let's not lose sight that that's actually a really good thing in terms of our collective values that we're demonstrating and putting in place. And I think hopefully that sticks around, and some of that goodwill and perspective sticks around after through this crisis. The second thing I think that's really important, transformation in this is businesses across the board seeing the power of being able to move fast. We talked about that in the technology space is obviously an advantage of modernized and moving to the cloud. But no one's ever seen something so broad-based, so needing to move fast as this. So I think that really reinforces that need for speed, and hopefully we'll get a lot of things modernized across our economy, to move much more quickly in the future, for when we're done with this, to help us adjust and move to the next thing. And then the third really interesting point here is really making sure that we talk about keeping the focus on those personal relationships at a distance, right? And I think we all can get heads down on things. And I think this also, we're all self-quarantining, really lets us think about that, and think about the people we work with, the people we partner with, the people we serve as customers, and and I hope and how we kind of make those connections day to day remotely, and at some point in the future again in person. I think that's also a good upside benefit from this.
Yeah, no, that is. Just a quick update. I know KT, you probably got to drop at 10. Just interrupt us and say goodbye. But I just want to give a quick agenda update. So at 10 o'clock, I have Craig Broussard. He's the director of infrastructure for NCH Corp here from Irving, Texas. He's going to be dialing in then on video and continuing the conversation from a customer's perspective. So don't go anywhere. And then Cristantos, didn't mean to cut you off there. Your turn to answer that question.
So I think a couple of things before Kevin drops off. I do want to say, like we were talking about winners and losers, right? And when you have a situation that we're in right now, and you have even InContact, right, where people are struggling to go work remote and they're scrambling to find the things, you have a position where, like I love that term, winners and losers, where anybody who's providing video right now and going against Zoom is, I wouldn't bet on them, right? I mean, that would be so difficult right now in this current environment. So what happens to all those businesses that were trying to provide video, right? What happens to them? We all know them. There were so many of them. What happens when you have an event like this? What happens when you have an event like this? Now I need to deploy my contact centers remotely, right? Like quickly. How fast and who can do it the fastest and the best? Like that's what it comes down to. Who's going to allow me to deploy these solutions the quickest and the fastest? And those winners are basically going to destroy the other parts of the other contact center business and the video business and the voice business. Like you are going to see a lot of people fall off, and you are going to see winners. And then these winners, whoever can survive this, are just going to be the dominant players. They're going to be the dominant winners in this dominant space. And it's kind of scary, but it's kind of like, so what happened? And that's why I always go back to the thing is like, what happens to all those employees for all those companies who aren't working at the winners? And the winners are just going to keep growing.
Yeah.
So you better hope
that was deep stuff, my brother.
That was.
You better hope you're on the winning team.
Yeah. Well, with that, Kyle, thank you. Guys, thank you so much. Really, really intelligent conversation. I wish you all be safe. And please let me know if you guys need anything.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Kevin.
And just to answer that last part on the other part of the question, Kyle and Chris, I think one of the greatest things that ever happened for remote work is, and I think as a child growing up in the 80s, both my mom and dad worked, and they used to drop me off at daycare, and I hated that. I hated being dropped off at daycare, right? And I feel it contributed a lot to my problems in high school later in life, but I get to spend all of my time with my kids. Like, is it the most amazing quality? No, but I get to see my kids grow up. I'm here all the time. Like, I get to see them. I get to see my wife. Like, the quality of my life, I will not look back and say, hey, I missed my kids growing up.
Oh yeah. I got some things to say about that, but before I do, Chris Bauserman, are you good on time?
I need to drop here in a minute, but I wanted to make one more thing. So my fourth point on Todd's request that I forgot to mention earlier is, I'll also make another point. So I second Cristantos' comment on family, right? It's a great, when you sort of get that chance to sort of, see your kids every day, even more so. I think it's easy to sort of feel like they're tugging on you when you're trying to do a conference call, but it's a fantastic opportunity. The other fantastic opportunity, I think, coming out of this, is I think when we prove out, right, how much productivity we can get from remote workers, it's going to really change that dynamic of where do people have to live for a particular job, right? And we start talking about affordability, housing crunches, et cetera. You're going to have a hard time saying you must live and work in San Francisco, as opposed to that same job, at a lake house in Minnesota, right? So I think that's going to open up, a lot more opportunities for people to, better labor pools for a lot of jobs, the ability to have people have a better, more flexibility in terms of housing options, quality of life coming out of this, because this really is going to show us that remote work with the right tools, the right practices, the right processes, right, it can still be very, very productive. And I think that's something that will be another great upside coming out of this.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We're proving out the model. It's already been proven, right? But now we're proving it out at scale,
Yes.
just by nature of what's happening. And
Right.
that's what Cristantos' point earlier and everyone else's points earlier was just like the disruption, the winners and losers that are going to come out of as a result of this. And unfortunately, a lot of the employees are going to be the losers, right? Because Amazon's standing up 1,000 employees that are lower cost, lower salaried employees hourly, right? So it's just crazy to see what's going to happen here. But thank you so much for jumping on the show today, Chris. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Stay safe.
You too. Cristantos, how are you doing on time?
Oh, dude, this is amazing. I like doing this. This is good, dude. I was thinking, man. I was like thinking, with your show, I was like, you should do like a special, just like considering the times, like just work from home and like have these types of discussions like all over. I mean, just there's so much to this, right?
Yeah, there's so much that we haven't even scratched the surface yet. And like quick shout out to everybody that's watching on LinkedIn: Michael Hodge, Scott Vincent, Kelly Flowers, Debbie Petrie, Jeff Moss, Rama. Rama just put a comment in right now. So the median earnings for a person who works from home were $42,442 in 2018. Far above the median earnings for all workers, which were closer to 38,000. Wow, it's very specific, Rama. 38,184.
So, I mean, if you think about what he just said, and the reason for that is typically companies who have allowed employees to work from home are typically your knowledge workers.
Right.
And so, so they're typically going to be a lot higher in pay. But this goes back to my point, like the jobs Amazon's giving, like, it's unfortunate, like just the way the world works. It's almost like we don't have a fiefdom or like a class system, but in essence, we do have a class system, right? And your class system is almost like you're looking at your hourly wage on what you can earn, your capacity to earn, and that's going to determine where you lie. And obviously, all the the class system, obviously, with your earnings is based on your knowledge and what you can contribute to society is going to determine what your earning rate is. And if you don't have that earning power, you're just going to be in the lower end of the earning scale, which means you actually got to physically go do work.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then you're going to be applying for one of these jobs at Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to sound like this, but like, and then like one of the other things I think is going to happen, Todd, I'd love to hear what your thoughts is like companies are going to use this as an excuse to like companies who were not performing well. Right? They're not performing well. This just gave them an excuse to cut people or get rid of people or blame their earnings that they were already going to miss.
Right.
And so we're going to have companies hiding things and using this as an excuse on why. I mean, they weren't already performing as is. Yeah. And we can think of lots of companies like that. So there's going to be a lot of deterioration and colorization of what's really going on with all this chaos.
Yeah, no doubt. Todd, are you still there? You're still on the line as well.
I am.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, man?
Man, when the chips are down, the truth comes out. So to the point you just made, Chris, I think we're going to see a lot of that as well. You're not going to be able to hide. But people are going to try to hide behind this, so they may hide for a minute, and then on the other side of that, the truth comes out. So we talk about the challenges of the worker, of the individual worker. Chris, how do they prepare themselves, right? If you find yourself right now in one of those roles where you're in one of the jobs where they're like, you can't come in, you cannot come in, and we don't have a work from home option. This is a hands-on job, whatever the job is. This is a trade, whatever it is a factory. How do those people go through a process of upskilling, right? How do they themselves, are those resources available today, in your opinion? I think a lot of them are. But how do they make sure that they're not caught up in this shift? Because like we were just talking about, that shift has been accelerated now. How do we make sure that, how do they make sure that they're not getting caught up in the shift and get left behind as the economy moves?
I mean, Todd, you and I know you're an infantry guy. I know you're in the Marine Corps. I have my Marine Corps shirt on. Right. And I think about the humility and the willingness to learn. There has to be a true, and I'll just give you an example. If I didn't have the skills for today's day and age, right, and I would have to invest myself, and I would go to a guy like Kyle, and I would say, hey, Kyle, let me come work for you for a year, 2 years. I'll work for you for free, because I need to learn. How many people are willing to do that? I did that. I went and I threw myself while I was in the Marine Corps because I wanted to learn more about computers. After my hours, I remember I went to a computer store outside Oceanside. I went to this guy, he owned a store, and I said, listen, I'll work for free. Just teach me about, and I was like 19. I think I was 18 years old, 19. And I said, I'll work for free. Just teach me about computer repair. I don't know if you guys are too young to remember computer repair, but it was a big little business back then. And I wanted to learn everything about hardware. I wanted to learn about hard drives and memory. And I went after Marine Corps time, Todd. I went to his store and I worked for free so I could learn about troubleshooting hardware, software. Like I always have done that. So when I hear people can't get a job, I've always gone to people and say, hey, I'll work for free. And if you start seeing value in me, then pay me. Today, that's not the way it works. I want money now.
Right.
I'm amazing.
Well,
and I'm like,
what's even more fascinating is how much more difficult that's going to be now. Like, think about people who are searching for a job right now. Like, when you go to work for someone for free, even in that sense, and you want to learn from them, typically you're like trying to get close to them, right? You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. But how are you surrounding yourself with people if you're socially distancing yourself from them? So now, like, we're seeing, we live in, but you got to look at the optimistic side of it too. We live in a world where we can see the entire world from behind a screen without ever leaving. We can communicate on these metal devices, voice, video, audio, the entire spectrum on the opposite side of the world, right? We live in a time that we can do that. We can communicate this out. We can communicate these messages to stay in your damn house right now, wash your hands. We can communicate these messages, whereas before we couldn't. So get a look at the optimistic side of it as well. But people are not even used to, still not even used to being in the digital age in the sense of like searching for a job, right? Like, it's still like who you handshake with. That's how you get the job. But how's that all? That's completely disrupted now. I don't even know the answer there.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Kyle. I mean, that is a good point. But look, you and I, we've connected so many times. We've never met each other.
That's true.
Physically, right? And we've built a relationship, right?
That's
Even
cool.
with Todd, I used to talk with Todd on the phone. I had never met him, and then one day I finally met him when the passing actually happened. Because we had never met, but we talked before.
Yeah.
And I for me, that's normal now. Like, I talk to people all the time. I have relationships on phone. I've never met them, but I'm not going to go out to Rhode Island and meet them either, right? If they happen to be in Las Vegas when I'm there, then, oh, great hug. It's like, oh, okay. Then that's it.
Yeah.
But I built all those relationships virtually.
Right. Yeah. So that's normal for you, but is that normal for everyone else?
But that's where they got to go. They have no choice.
I think that's part of the point, right? This whole thing has accelerated the shift.
Yep.
And it used to be like, okay, we're in the process of this transition from analog to digital, right? And people held out in certain areas, and depending on what you were selling, right? People didn't want to buy that particular thing, right? You're moving from you're selling copiers and trying to sell more software, and like whatever it is, software is eating the world. So people were sitting there saying, well, I can hold out, or a business would say, I can hold out. It's okay. My business still runs without it. Now that the decision has been made for everyone, whether you're a job seeker, whether you're a business owner, whether you're the president of the United States or a leader of any other country, the decision has been made. The digital age is here. The time of holding out is gone. It's too late. You've got to figure out the pathway forward. And to Chris's point from earlier, it's an individual ownership thing, right? So in the past, whenever we were still able to rely on analog, which is the way the world was built, well, even before analog, but if we go like education system, everything else, you could just kind of plug yourself into the system and expect the system to just carry you through, and your own individual responsibility was relatively low. And those in the capitalist society that applied themselves and did more And like to Chris's point, I went out and sought mentors early in my career. I went out and took the hard job because I knew I needed to gain those skills. Same kind of thing. And yeah, it's not just because we're Marines. That's a part of it. But Kyle, you've done the same thing. You're not a Marine, but you've done the same thing in your career. And as you've learned to become the entrepreneur that you are today, and you'll continue to do that. Around, like you said, you're the average of the 5 people closest to you. So we all surround ourselves with good people who elevate us. And each individual has to take that ownership now. I think you can't just plug yourself into the system and expect it to spit you out to make $100,000 anymore. You're going to have to be able to go and do the work yourself.
Kyle, for some reason, it's not getting me.
Skills.
Hey, Greg, what's going on, Greg?
Oh, there he is. All right. Hey, Kyle, I don't want to step on this piece of the call.
No. Craig just joined.
No audio today.
Craig,
okay, cool.
Craig, you can hear us? Oh, he can't hear us. No, keep going, Todd. Craig's having a little bit of challenges joining.
No worries. So that was my point. I mean, and it's just echoing what you guys are saying as well. But I think that kind of puts a bow on it. That the days of holding out that this, the digital transformation, those days are over. And digital age is here. So absolutely. Each individual has to take that responsibility.
Absolutely,
whether you're leading a team, leading a company, or you're just leading your own life and taking care of your family.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Craig Broussard, Mr. Broussard, can you hear us?
I can now.
You can. Awesome. Let me cue you up here. Good morning, man. First off, it's under trying times that we're all in right now. So how are you? How are things? What's on your mind today?
Pretty chaotic. So that's where I was just at. I was still sitting there coming out of conference calls of everything that's going on. Sorry it ran over. But essentially, I mean, we're taking a traditional work in the office workforce that's been around for 100 years globally and saying, hey, in a drop of a hat, we're going to move you home. Our biggest need right now is getting all of our call centers moved and getting them off of an analog phone system over to our Cisco voice over IP environment, onto the existing DIDs that we have, recreate the call trees, get everybody moved, and we're doing this over at light speed. Roughly, we're going to have the first 60 moved in the next 3 days.
Wow. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Craig Broussard is the director of infrastructure for NCH Corp out of Irving. NCH Corp, among many things, they actually make hand sanitizer. So you got any of that laying around, Craig?
We have a huge backlog in orders. Right, we're making as fast as we can. The largest demand is in Europe. We have had to change bottle suppliers because they haven't been able to keep up with us. But it's been an interesting time.
Wow.
So Kyle, can I ask Craig a question?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Craig Cristantos, Craig.
So Craig, when you were making your decisions to make these transitions so quickly, did you make the decisions based on the product or how fast it could get deployed? Did you care about the quality, or did you just care who's going to do it the fastest?
So we actually already own our Cisco environment, right? So okay. we're in a long-term migration plan to move off of our existing Rome environment to the Cisco environment. We just had to accelerate it.
So you already had a plan in place to get all this done anyway.
Yeah. So my primary PBX is a 35-year-old Rome switch.
And what about like your CRM solution? Is that in-house too? Is that on-premise or is that?
No, it's Salesforce.
Okay. So you had a lot of cloud infrastructure already set up, except for the communications piece.
Exactly. I mean, so we're in shape there. We've got our WebEx was on-prem. We've moved to WebEx Cloud, and a little bit of WebEx on-prem still. So we've got a hybrid going on with that. Just because we know certain infrastructures are being strained even in the cloud. Cisco's been teetering on edge of capacity, as well as Microsoft Teams and everyone else. So we have Teams here. We have WebEx Cloud, and we also have our WebEx on-prem that we can dedicate if we have to back to our executive team. So they've got a guaranteed environment. So
you have Office 365 too as well?
I have some Office 365, and most of it is still considered 2016, 2013 Office that's running around. But we do have a significant Teams deployment that's going on. We're also migrating off of old OCS.
Wow. Hey, Craig, real quick, can I get you to move slightly to the right?
That's right.
Yep, there you go. Perfect. So you're taking advantage of the Microsoft Teams that they offer that they have. I understand.
Yeah, and we have a deployment already. So we have, probably 300 seats already deployed and everything else. IT's been running on it globally. And we've got most of our other environments. HR has been moved to it now for about 6 months. So we're slowly rolling that out as well. It's kind of hard to say, hey, well, you got to start paying for something that you've had for free for years, but it's one of those things that we're having to move.
I noticed you're still in the office today.
I am.
I'm still in the office today, but I'm in an isolated one-person office. But you're in an office there in Irving. How many people are actually in the office today?
So we've moved quite a significant amount of IT home already. My leadership is half here, half is gone. And then I've got most of my service desk people and software support people are still here. And my network team is still here because, like I said, we just started pushing the work from home aspect for everyone. So I've got a lot of VPN connectivity to get done and remote setups. So I've got staff here helping those that are in the business side get set up for work from home. We even got people that are not laptop based, so they are desktop based. So we're having them actually get on their own home computers to be able to get connectivity back here, and we're using RDP and stuff to be able to get back in.
Wow.
Yeah, it's extreme measures, things that I wouldn't do from a security best practices, but we got to keep the business rolling.
Absolutely. Shout out to Brandon Barber. What's going on, sir? So Craig, what do you think is the most challenging thing that you guys have come across? So, I mean, the whole thing is challenging, but like specifically, if you can, without giving away too much of the business.
The most challenging thing right now is that getting supply chain to be able to sit there and get enough laptops in to be able to get them built out and deployed. Yeah, that's really my biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, that does take some time because now you're waiting for them to be shipped. They can't be shipped fast enough.
I got 150 that are inbound here now, and then I've got another 70 in the UK that's going in, and just pushing them to get in. I'm actually headed over to a partner of ours to go look at their depot to see if I can set up and do the imaging and deployment out of their facilities instead of mine. Planning on heading over there after this call.
Wow. I definitely appreciate your time. We won't take up too much of it. So what else? What else do you think is in your perspective, your worldview perspective of what's going on? Like, how do you think this is going to change your business? Change business, period. Right.
I honestly think that for NCH, our way of selling is being face to face. Touching hands. That handshake's monumental in what we do. We're going to have to change the way that we do business monumentally for us. IT traditionally has been an in-house shop. We may get more diversified. We may have more work from home. We need to be more agile and the ability to adapt to changing situations. This has been a real eye-opening experience for NCH as a company. But again, the staff here has been tremendous. Everyone's chipping in and doing what they need to do. I couldn't be prouder of my team. I couldn't ask more of their commitment and what they're doing. So I'm real excited with what's happening there. And for a guy that's been here less than a year and dropped in the middle of this, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Cristantos, any further questions or observations?
I commend you for how quickly you're moving, especially for such a large organization. It seems like you hit all the points, like the VPN issues, the hardware issues, you're making people use their own personal computers, letting security practices kind of fall by the wayside in order to keep the business running. I mean, you're in the midst of it all. Like you got a lot on your plate, and I commend you. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes right now because that's just a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
Thank you. I mean, it's part of the job, right? It's not one that everyone wants to sign up for, but it's one that you play the hand that's dealt you, right? So we have a can-do attitude, and we're not worried about backing up. We're pushing through this all the way. And from security layer point of view, and I want to be very clear about this, we have multiple layers of security. By allowing even home devices to get in, we know if they meet our security standards or not. They're stopped before they get in if they don't. So we have that in place.
So Craig, let me ask you a question. Why do you even need RDP? Like, can't you just work from the web? Like, don't you have Office 365 with the Drive, Salesforce? You have all these tools. Like, why pull the systems back to the office? Why can't it just be all cloud?
So some of the environment requires a very specific implementation install. Again, we're still a 100-year-old company that has a lot of legacy out there. So there are certain applications that require certain versions of Java which aren't necessarily always available anymore. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's technical requirements that mandates that we have certain configuration setups that most people in their home systems wouldn't have.
So do you see the future? Like, for instance, now that you're going to see that people can work from home, do you see that you're going to need as much office space as you have now, realizing that more people can work from home?
So the interesting thing is we own our buildings. We don't lease.
Okay.
So
well, God bless you guys.
So we have 2 towers in Irving that we own. So we are committed to that anyway. So we've got that space. But I know this is going to be a long-term thing, right? The model of the company is that the culture here really thrives on people being together. And we don't want to damage that culture. So we want to get people back in as soon as possible. This is coming from a guy for 15 years worked at home. Or I worked at a remote office. But I can tell you now, in 11 months of being here, I love every minute of being in this office. And it's important for the camaraderie and the culture that we have here and the commitment of a family-first attitude that everyone has to be here. If we stayed all remote and away, we would lose that. There's no way that you can maintain it.
So have you seen the current reports that have come out about millennials? And again, I don't know if you're hiring a lot of young millennials out of college, like a lot of other companies, but a lot of the millennials, they don't want to come to the office.
Oh, of course they don't.
So how do you continue if you're a 100-year-old company? I mean, you're going to have to keep hiring new young people, and they're going to get job offers from other companies that will allow them to work remote.
So most of our young people that we hire come in through our intern program. And the interns, once they get here, they never want to leave. We have a 95% conversion rate of our interns to perms.
And the average tenure, I'm assuming, is pretty good as well.
So just to give you an idea, what would you guess would be the average tenure of an IT person in most companies?
Less than 3 years.
Mine is 25 years.
Wow. All right. Yeah.
Wow.
I have people that have been here 40 years in IT.
Wow.
I have people that have been here. This is the only job they've ever had straight out of college.
Yeah. So you guys have a really good culture there.
The culture is probably the best that I've ever seen. I've made this comment before in video posts that I've made, is that this is the single greatest company I've ever worked at from a culture standpoint.
So that either means that there's a lot of bad companies that are in your area. Or it could be the opposite. Because if you're in San Francisco, people are getting poached left and right. Like, you just can't keep good employees. Like, there's just too much competition. So if you have people who are staying at your company, that means you guys must be super amazing, and everybody else around you is really, really bad at building culture.
So I will give you some of our closest people that are around us. Nokia, for an example. Nokia has a great culture. I came from Nokia. Atos is up and down the road. They, give or take who you want to be, will say what there is. Verizon's here. Pioneer Industries is here. There is tons of companies that are around us that are known to having a great culture and are very competitive. Hell, right up the road from us, we've got, everything that's up in the Frisco corridor, right? I mean, you've got USAA, you've got NTT, you've got all kinds of companies. I would put our culture up against any company in the Dallas-Fort Worth area all day long. And I think that's a difference maker.
Yeah, definitely. So, so during these times, right? So, like IT, huge strain on IT right now. You mentioned that you have your staff in the office. They're going to be imaging laptops and trying to get these out as quickly as possible. So, what are the foreseeable steps that you guys are taking to just, I guess that what I'm asking is, like, how long do you think, what's a reasonable amount of time for us to start business again? I mean, you guys are trying to start business again yesterday, but there's a reasonable amount of time, like, hey, this is happening right now, like, take some time, right?
So we're continuing to run our business, right? It hasn't stopped.
Right.
So we're continuing down that path. So for me, priorities is to get people able to work from home. Number one, priority one. And if that means that we're doing it with their equipment connecting back into ours, then so be it. That's what we're doing. We have spent the last 4 or 5 days creating how-to videos as well as creating step-by-step documentation, and we staff and make available resources in common areas that are easily accessible by anyone in the Corp campus to be able to get to them, to get help them what they need. I'm even preparing now to get staff together, and if I can get concentrated areas where people are living that are having problems, I'll route people to them. We're going to get our workforce working here again.
Wow.
I love your positive attitude,
Yes.
Craig. I mean, you are like gung ho. Were you in the Marine Corps?
Nope, never served.
Oh man, I was in the Marine Corps. You sound like a gunnery. I
just interviewed 2 Marines, ex-Marines. So.
Yeah, you sound like a gunnery sergeant. I'm like, this guy's too motivated.
Yeah,
why is he so motivated?
Excellent, man. Excellent.
I'm doing it on a lot of little bits of sleep at times.
All right. Well, anybody ever tell you look like a famous actor?
No. Which one?
You kind of looked like the young version of John Goodman.
Oh, interesting.
The young version.
Nice. Todd, are you still on the line?
I am.
What do you got
Craig,
for us?
Todd Scarborough here. I was just thinking, this is tremendous to hear how you're responding to this, Craig, and how you're managing this. And you've got so many important products to so many of your customers. It's a lot to deal with for any leader, and especially in IT, where you're keeping the lights on for everyone, and keeping communications flowing. How do you personally handle the weight of the day to day? Because this isn't a regular IT weight, right? Like, I mean, not everybody's going through this, facing these kinds of challenges on a daily basis, but it is the daily challenge that we all face today. So how are you handling that? It sounds like you guys are managing extremely well.
We're doing well.
How are you doing that?
Yeah. Plus, you got personal things. We all got personal things, and like this is the time when IT can't check out.
No,
but like, it feels like the rest of the world is checked out, right?
Well, me personally, I mean, my daughter was in surgery yesterday. I was at the hospital with her, still dealing with all of this while I was there. But you asked a question, so just to make a point to this is I've got a system upgrade that's going on this weekend, and we're doing all of our network maintenance globally this weekend. So it's the layer on top of the cake, right? It's the icing that we're working on now, and making sure that we get that done. And so at the end result, we were going to have a multi-tiered cake with a lot of great icing on it, and people are going to be able to work and function. The biggest change for us, honestly, I think, is going to be the culture shock of not being in the office with people and being able to maintain that motivation and productivity levels. Some people are going to really suffer from it, and that's an expectation. And the leadership team is struggling with how do we manage and maintain to that, because they know that's going to be a challenge that we face.
So are you worried about productivity, about the employees who work at home?
I think any leader would be, to an extent, right? Whenever you've had a traditional work in the office workforce. Me personally, I've worked from home for 15 years. I know how to manage people that are remote and understand what to ask for to get the right answers, to know that we're being productive in what we're doing. Look, I'm not a micromanager, and I'm not going to micromanage people. We're going to sit there and set targets for what we want to get done. And if it takes 4 hours or 10 hours, we go and we get it done. That's the way that we're going to operate. We don't stop.
So, but you said, you're a 100-year-old company and everyone's going remote. And if I know a lot of CEOs and a lot of old school executives, they believe people need to be in the office, because if they think people are at the house, they think they're not working. So that psychologically is very hard for a lot of executives.
Yeah, it is, very much so. And that has been probably the single largest challenge, I think, that we as an organization are facing, is creating that trust, right? To understand that people can be efficient at home. They can get their job done. The question is, how do you lead them to understand how to get their job done remotely and being able to show that productivity?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great one.
So Craig, you said that your teams have been putting together tutorial videos. Obviously, some of that's very specific to your corporation, but you guys have been like helping people work from home. So what have you learned from that? Like, how are you guys helping people work from home that would maybe apply to a broader audience here?
Well, I will tell you that honestly, I've got some stuff that came across my desk last night through email that I haven't even looked at yet. That's coming from our HR team, with our talent acquisition and our talent development groups that have literally really jumped right into this and looked at ways that they can help create an understanding of how to work from home and what are the best practices around doing that, and they're circulating that very heavily. So I think that's the first step of getting around it. It's not just something that IT can do. It definitely requires the involvement of the leadership and the business, as well as HR providing that input, right, to be able to get that happening. So we're working towards getting a clean solution in place, but my team specifically is here standing by, ready to support whoever needs it and being able to get through working from home. Not only just from a technology standpoint, but we've been circulating at home for a while. So we got people that are used to working in that environment and are willing to provide their input and feedback of how they manage to make it work for them.
Yeah. So in that process, what are some things that you've heard that's working for certain people or that works for you?
Well, so I will give you my personal experience from doing this for so long. I treat every day that I work from home just like I do when I go to the office. It just starts earlier. I get up, I take a shower, I get ready just like I would be going to the office. I walk down the hall, get inside of my office, close my door in there. I get set up, turned in, tuned on, make sure that I'm invisible in our collaboration tools and that I'm online. I start reaching out to team members and say, hey, I'm on. What's going on? What can I do to help you, right? Start working that network already inside of your own organization to ensure that you get people motivated working with you, right? I do that on a regular basis. Right now we're doing daily stand-ups, just because we're moving people out and they're not sitting in here. So I've got a daily stand-up with my leadership team that we sit there and we go through what's happening, what's going on next, what do they need right now, any challenges that are going on, so that I can take it right into the executive team to be able to sit there and circumvent any challenges that are going on.
Oh, that's a great idea of doing daily stand-ups. I'm sure that also just brings people together. It feels like they're not alone as well.
It does. The biggest thing that happens is people that start working from home, especially new people working from home, the novelty of it wears off real quick, and then you start thinking, how do I stay busy? What do I do? What do I need to work on next? How do I prioritize what I was doing? Because always somebody was around kind of feeding us things to go do, and I may not be getting that right now. I get up every day. I have a checklist of what I want to get accomplished. I work that checklist every day, whether I'm in the office or out of the office, it's the same way, right? So, I practice, if you've got good practices about how you manage your day, you're going to do well at this, regardless of where you're working at.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also like the mental health side of it. Like you're putting yourself on an island. All right. And now you're putting yourself on an island. If you got kids, you're in that island with your kids, with dogs, with all these external forces, all these external variables. And especially if you don't have like a big enough space, like there's going to be some challenges here. And I think everyone just needs to be a little bit more, welcoming to that.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's funny because I was so used to this before, but now all morning long, the calls that I've been in with even external partners, right, is, hey, yeah, we've moved home and working everything else. So if you get background noise, please excuse it, right? They all start off the call that way. So it's kind of comical in a way, but it's understanding, right? And we all work through that. I mean, I can remember many days of myself working at home, and somebody comes near the house and the dog goes nuts and starts barking like crazy. Even though I'm behind a closed door, you can hear right through it clear as day, right? So it happens. But I think that society as a whole has had enough working from home activity that's going on over the last decade and a half that people should be used to having those kinds of background.
Right.
So
absolutely. And as
I think it's one of the benefits that comes from this. There's more grace extended to one another
Yes.
As we all go about our lives, and it helps in a healthy shift of work-life balance. And instead of work-life balance, I think people start looking at just living and working when we need to, right? Everybody on this call right now, Craig, we've all been working from home in technology for years, and we're used to all this. But for everybody else, this is a shock to the system, and it's fun to have a voice of reason and say, hey, this is going to set, that part of your life is going to settle down. You'll get used to it. Yeah, the kids being around, that's something that's new for us too. But it's great in other ways because of the fact that we're all getting to get back to our families. And that's the other benefit is that we've all mentioned, on this call all morning, is we're with our families. And I hear some people say it as a negative, and at times for me even it is that negative. And when you're like, oh my gosh, but we're with our families. We're with our families. And it's great.
Right. Yeah. And for all the entrepreneurs out there, I mean, entrepreneurs, they put themselves on an island. So like we're already used to this. We've already been isolated. Like I'm in a 10-person office right now with one person. It's just, I'm always in this space. It's always just me. So like, it's how can we extend that value to everybody else and help them get into that mindset. Right. So a couple more things, Craig, you get on time. What do you have to drop?
Yeah, no, I'm good for right now. I've probably got a good 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. I just had a question. I'm sure your inbox is probably overflowing. Your voicemail inbox and everything is overflowing with coronavirus this, coronavirus that. You should buy this based on coronavirus, right? So what? How do we as salespeople in this side communicate with somebody of your authority without coming across as tasteless? Like, business has to go on, right? We have empathy, but how do we communicate without it seeming like opportunistic and whatnot?
That's a tough call, man, because I forget about the coronavirus thing, right? Just days in, day out in general.
Yep.
I get salespeople calling my personal cell phone. The only place they're getting it is really honestly off my resume that's sitting on LinkedIn. That's on my personal profile because I don't have any other contact information on there. And it's almost like an invasion of privacy, and it's this way all the time. And I know people have got to dial for dollars, but I will tell you that for the most part, if I'm interested, I'll get back with you. If I'm not, don't keep badgering me. I had a guy 4 days in a row that sat there and kept trying to market to me and everything else. And I told him, I said, look, dude, if I'm interested, I'll come back to you. And he goes, well, I'm going to keep this up to you. So I just blocked him in Proofpoint and said, see you later. That's the end of that road. Do not make yourself a nuisance. That's what my advice to anybody marketing, right? We're all busy. My day consists of 7 to 8 hours of meetings a day, and I'm working 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
I have a budget. My budget I work in, and my budget's already planned for FY21. So my year goes from May 1st to April 30th. I've already done everything I'm going to do. I'm not going to see any other vendors. I'm not going to entertain anything new at this point.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. I got to respond to something real quick.
No worries. But yeah, no, that's huge. Thank you for that. I mean, so the persistence, annoying persistence isn't going to cut it anymore.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things that, there's so many other things that are going on now. One of the things that I really like that I've started doing the last couple of few months, and I've been to 2 of them now for GBI, but GBI does events that they do 2 and 3 times a year. And it's essentially professional networking speed dating.
Yeah.
So they bring in customers. We sit down at a table, and they rotate between 12 and 18 vendors for 5-minute windows with us. And we sit there and we get to hear the pitch, understand what's going on. If we're interested, we sit there and say that we're interested. If we're not, we pass, and there's no more contact.
Nice. All right.
So, I love that approach. It's very effective. In fact, I've had meetings with 3 different vendors because of contact like that. And funny enough, one that I've been buying from forever, I finally got to meet the guy that runs it for here. So nice. It worked out perfectly.
Nice. Excellent. Cool. Chris, Todd, any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I hope you should write a blog, Craig, on your LinkedIn, talk about your challenge. I mean, I think people would read it understand what your challenges, what you're going through, and how, help other people like you who are in your situation, dealing with what they're dealing with. I think people would love to hear that from you.
Oh, Craig won't write a blog. He'll make a video. He's a LinkedIn video guy.
Boom.
I'm nowhere near the caliber you are, though, Calbert.
It's all good, man. It's all good. We're all on different journeys.
Right. We're all on this journey together. It's all about the journey. It's all about the journey. And I think that's what I would say, Craig. Just that's all I've got for you is just appreciation for leaders like you, and for you specifically. And I'm sure your team is very thankful for you. Just thanks for being prepared and having plans in place that have made this easier for your team and for your leaders. And it's really cool to be able to see, because all of us have been in tech and we've all been preparing people over the years, and we've helped build these business continuity plans. And now as we move into business continuity execution, it's awesome to see it in place. So well done, sir. And as things move forward for you guys, Kyle, I'd love for the three of us to have a conversation about your contact center needs, as that is relevant to you.
Todd, are you trying to sell? We said no selling.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm not.
Hey, the best part is I don't know who he represents, and I don't want to know.
There you go. I buzzed you out, buddy.
Exactly. That's all. There we go. Thank you.
That's good.
Hey, but I did want to make one other point, though, Kyle. You asked a question about how's this going to change things for us. One of the things that I don't think we talked about, and I think is really, really important, is that many of us that are out there and all over, we spend a significant amount of time professional networking. The idea of professional networking is completely on hold right now, unless we virtualize it. And